Where are you?
Hey, Evelyn.
There, was in high school, a member of the Youth Climate Lobby.
State House lockout.
And came to the State House as an intern for me last year and now works for VNRC. So there is a ladder for.
Molly, sorry to interrupt you. We have something going on?
Just got notice from the Capitol Police, there's a State House lockout emergency, something on the outside of the building.
Okay, but we don't need to
No.
change what we're doing?
No, we just can't go outside.
Okay, then we're in the right place.
Oh,
Thank you for that alert.
do we have to do anything else? Thank you for. Pardon me? Oh, right. Oh, sorry. Youth lobby people, we have pizza. We have lunch for you. So if you want to get up and go get some lunch, and that's fine. We don't want to be,
Yeah, let's get some food.
sorry, thank
Well,
you.
it's relatively hot, right?
Right. Crazy day. Oh my
So.
God, I wonder what's going on.
Everyone knows what the youth lobby does.
Yeah, okay.
Evelyn, would you mind telling us what the youth lobby does while they're grabbing their pizza?
Yes, we also have Matt Pension in the room, who is much more knowledgeable on
maybe Matt
what
wants
the
to-
current youth lobby is doing.
Maybe Matt, I think that the baton was passed to you. Tell us a little bit while they're getting pizza.
So what we're currently doing is really up in the air. Right now, things are changing very fast. But I think the main goal of so the lobby started at Harwood in my classroom. And we were studying climate change, we were studying lobbying, and one of the videos we were watching was talking about lobbyists, how fuel companies use lobbyists, and one of the students was like, do we have a lobby? And I said, what do you mean, like, who? He said, like, young people, like, is anybody looking out for? And I was like, oh, I'm sure there's an organization out there that, like, kind of the AARP for young people. And there wasn't really that. This is like 10, 12 years ago. So she's like, that's what I want to do for my civic action project. So it started, the whole idea is to basically just build a youth movement, get young people more involved in the electoral system. The goal is to work with the system, like engaged, informed, civil action, try to get kids, to do civics as much as, not just study civics. So what we're doing right now, it's really up in the air and it's really up to the students at that point. We have adult mentors that give advice, but the students are the only ones that make decisions and sort of call the shots, so.
Thank you.
Okay. So, do we want to go around? So we've taken care of that. So maybe students could just go around and say who you are and where you're from, and then we will hear from Austria, correct? Okay.
My name's Izzy, I'm from Harwood, I'm a senior. My name's Lucy, I'm from Harwood, I'm a senior. My name's Ayla, I'm from Harwood, I'm a senior. My name is Quincy, I'm from Virgins, and I'm waiting for on the Vermont County Council, so if you guys any questions you have about that. My name's Cora, I'm a sophomore at Harwood. My name's Maddie, I'm a junior at Harwood. My name's Jade, and I'm a sophomore at Harwood.
Great.
I'm Harmony, and I'm a sophomore at Harwood. I'm on the Vermont State Youth Council and Youth Lobby. I'm a sophomore.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for your advocacy and for coming here today. Do you have a snow day today? Yeah. Okay, so Austria, let's hear from you.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone here today, and it's an honor to meet all of you. And this is such an important issue, and events like these are really important to solving it. My name is Astrid Longstreth. I'm on the Vermont State Youth Council as the Climate Change Committee Chair. I go to Mount Mansfield Union High School as a freshman. So the Vermont State Youth Council was created through Act 109. It was signed into law by Governor Phil Scott on May 11th, 2022. It's a group of 28 diverse youth from across the state. It's broken into 5 subcommittees, and these include the climate change, education, equity and anti-racism, youth mental health, and youth voice committees. There's also an executive committee, and it's made up of individual committee chairs and the council chair. The State Youth Council held our first public hearing in the spring of 2024, and we have a survey that can be found on our website in order to gather input from the youth that we're here to represent. We meet annually with the governor and the General Assembly in order to present recommendations on the topics of each committee. The State Youth Council is important in many ways. It gives youth a voice in a world where it can be difficult to make your voice heard. And take on real world complex problems. The climate is especially important because it affects all of us. We don't have any time to lose. Action needs to start now. The goal of the Climate Change Committee is to create recommendations about the climate and environment to be presented to the Governor and General Assembly. These are created with youth in mind, knowing that its youth will be inheriting this world and its climate problems. Last year, we crafted the following recommendations that were presented to the Governor and General Assembly. So the first one is that climate change and other environmental problems should be a required part of the public school curriculum in order to create a more environmentally conscious generation. Vermont should, and this is the second one, Vermont should invest in alternative and efficient energy sources to reduce the state's carbon footprint by 90% by the year 2040. This could be done through tax incentives and affordable options for renewable energy implementation, compost and recycling participation, and electric vehicle purchases. The third recommendation is to minimize vehicle and animal impacts by reducing speed limits and increasing speeding penalties in wildlife areas in order to protect Vermont's animal populations. And the final recommendation is that 50% of Vermont state forests and biodiverse working lands are protected by the year 2040. So yeah, those were the ones from last year. The committee is still working to finalize this year's recommendations. They haven't all been voted on, so I can't share them yet. But the topics of interest for them are climate change education, composting, forest conservation, specifically old growth forest conservation, and electric school buses and electric public transportation. So the priorities of the council going forward are for each committee to finalize these recommendations so they can be presented and to continue to gather input from youth across the state through our survey, which again can be found on our website. Once again, thank you everyone who's here today. I'm really happy to be here and it's really great to meet all of you. This is so important. It's inspiring and hopeful to see us all working together to stop climate change. So thank you so much.
Do you, so this is a great opportunity. If there's any other, first of all, thank you, Astrid. That was some of the most efficient testimony I have heard. So thank you. Is there any other youth here who wanted to share anything? I realize you're all chewing, but any thoughts or ideas that you want us to hear? And then or questions you've got. So if you're an elected legislature who serves, if you could raise your hand so we can identify ourselves. So we have a pretty good mix, thank you guys, of elected leaders here. So if there are things that you want to share with us or questions that you have for us, this is also a good opportunity for that. So we can take a beat together.
And if anybody, yeah, go ahead.
The students at the Harwood Youth Lobby, we're wondering like what issues or bills we should be advocating for this year. So we're like asking for suggestions of like project ideas or like testimonies to give. So if you have any suggestions that you would like youth input or support on for the climate, that would be really helpful.
I see that we've got a few different legislators. Is there any ideas that legislators, ideally, if you're a chair of maybe one of a relevant committee, there's a bill you'd like to highlight for them? Oh, go ahead, Representative Durfee.
Hi, I'm David Durfee and I chair the House Committee on Agriculture and Food Resiliency and Forestry. We've been taking testimony over the past couple of weeks on universal school meals. And we've heard from adults in passages. We haven't heard from any students who would be most affected by a repeal. And the reason I'm mentioning it is that the governor has proposed in his budget repealing the Universal School Meals Act that the legislature passed 2 years ago. So I'll just extend the invitation if students feel that they'd like to weigh in on that. You could certainly reach out to your legislators, individual legislators, or to the governor's office. And I'm happy to chat about it too, if that would be helpful.
And there's a climate nexus because they buy a lot of the
Yes.
food from local agriculture, which helps our climate. So, yeah. Yes, Kathleen.
I'm Representative Kathleen James, and I'm the chair of the House Energy and Digital Infrastructure Committee. Good committee representation here today in the room, which is great. Similar to what Representative Durfee pointed out to you, there's certainly a lot of great bills that you could advocate for. But I think equally important right now is for the youth of Vermont to speak with a very strong voice against a number of bills that have been introduced to repeal all of our landmark climate legislation. So in my committee right now, we have bills on the wall to repeal the Global Warming Solutions Act, the Clean Heat Standard, the Renewable Energy Standard, and
Next Clean Cars
too. So that work kind of as a body is sort of the foundation of our climate progress here in Vermont. And I guess I would say that if you all have an opinion on that, this would be a great time to reach out to your legislators.
Would it make sense for the students to come to your committee to discuss that or maybe not?
I'll reach out. We've got a lot of committees testimony stacked up right now on bills that we're trying to get out before crossover, but yes, maybe just not right this year.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, I serve on House Transportation, and I just have a comment for your consideration. You're gonna be living in the world that we're creating today. And walkable, bikeable communities that are also served by convenient and functional public transit. Provide the opportunity to live an emissions-free or very low emissions lifestyle, even lower than it would be. So if that is important to you, that sort of policy area touches on many different committee jurisdictions, transportation, housing in general, commerce, and I would encourage you to let your representatives know how you feel if walkable and bikeable future Vermont is important to you. Thanks.
Yeah, Candace.
Yeah, I'm Candace White, so I'm also on the Transportation Committee, as are several other people here.
You have a big group of
Yes,
transportation
and I
here.
think that some of you are going to join some of our committee meeting this afternoon, which is great. So just talking about EV incentives, we did ask for some additional money in the Budget Adjustment Act to restart EV incentives that had been spent last year. We did not get that in the Budget Adjustment Act, and part of our ask was to restart that, provided that the governor's budget included those. And my understanding is that it does not at this point. So, hearing your voices, letting the governor know about your support of that, I think would be really important. Let's see. And I think we are talking about a pilot project where we would look at merging school busing and public transportation as a way to save some money for school funding, which is, as you all know, I think is a really big challenge this year. So we'd love to hear some input on that. I've heard some concern from school leadership that they're concerned about safety, students riding the bus with regular citizens. I don't share that concern, but I would love to hear your input on that. And one other thing that we're talking about, looking at additional revenue sources in the transportation world, because we're seeing those go down as gasoline taxes go down, as we have less gasoline vehicles and more EVs. So looking at revenue alternatives. And one thing we're talking about is looking at possibly levying a fee on all these deliveries. So Amazon and, all this online shopping, which feels so convenient, but, there's a real cost to our roads, to our private roads, into our local businesses who can't compete price-wise, with some of these huge businesses. So those are some things we're talking about and would love to hear your input on those. Thank you.
Sarita? Right, oh, here, sorry.
Yes, I'm Representative Austin from Colchester. I'm on the Environmental Committee. And I just want to say that the legislative, if you can navigate, navigate to the legislative page, and then you go to committees, you can watch any testimony that we've heard, on YouTube. You can hear the testimony, look at the presentations on transportation, go to environment. We just heard about old forest growth this morning. We just heard about animals that are now targeted at risk because of climate change, how their homes are changing. But I would just say go there, and navigate and listen to the testimony, because there are some brilliant people in the Department of Forest and Wildlife and the Agency of Natural Resources that I'm riveted, like I'm sitting there I just can't believe I'm hearing such really excellent testimony for which we make a decision. And just to let you know, one of the things I hope we're going to do it, I'm looking kind of at a head person on my committee, but we're talking about looking at reintroducing the cougar into Vermont. And that would take a long time. I mean, I won't be alive, but you will. And that would be a really an exciting project to watch. But I would say go to the ledge page and then navigate through the committees and look at, you just go to the dates and you hit on that and you can see the testimony that it's hearing to make these decisions. But it's a fabulous resource.
Okay, Phil, and then.
Yeah, Phil Pouch, I'm on the Transportation Committee from Heinsberg. I encourage all of you folks, make your voice heard. So if you know the bill or an issue, and you can just email your representative or senator, that it impacts me. I read them all, I listen to them, and I learn things. And also, along with doing work here in the State House, in my experience, protests, civil protests are another way to let your voice be known. But so many people don't speak up, say anything. And like I said, an email or a couple emails or a handwritten letter, you can impact, you may change a decision, or you might make somebody stop and think twice when they're listening, or making votes. So it does work. And Vermont is a small enough state it really does work.
Yeah, as climate council, youth representatives, we've been really focused on making education for youth widely available and accessible regardless of education level. So I'm really glad to hear all these different committees and the steps you're taking. And I would really recommend you take into consideration what kind of media reaches youth the best and what kind of language you use in that media to educate youth about this, because people in this room are excited about this, but there are a lot of other youth who are also should be engaged and who would be engaged if they had access to some of this information. So I really recommend you look into avenues that will reach a lot of young people and think about how to phrase that language in ways that youth can understand so they can all engage.
Great.
Yeah, sorry. I know a lot of the youth lobby members here are really just here to listen and to learn a lot, but I was also wondering, I know we're planning on doing a lot of work, especially around what you were talking about with a lot of the bills being repealed. And something that's really important to us is just being educated in these bills. So not only hearing from you guys and saying, here, follow this, talk about this, but learning about them ourselves. So I was just wondering, do you have any information that you think would be helpful to us about maybe the drawbacks to these bills, or what, not necessarily drawbacks, but what are the concerns and what are people fighting back on with these bills? Are there anything valid concerns that we should be aware of?
Sure, and I don't know what the best way is to get that info to you if you guys want to do a Zoom and we can hop on. That's, I don't know if that's a way to reach the youth. Zoom's probably not even a thing anymore, no, I'm kidding. But, you know, we could join the Zoom and talk about it. A lot of our advocacy groups have great information on their websites about the Global Warming Solutions Act, about the Renewable Energy Standard, you know, about some of these other bills that we have passed. And just to be clear, these are bills that the legislature has passed and that are in effect right now. It's new to my experience in the legislature to see a slew of bills, you know, asking us to consider repealing landmark legislation. I haven't seen that in my time here. But yeah, you know, if you guys want to do, you know, if you guys want to reach out to the Climate Solutions Caucus and try to organize the Zoom, but I would also encourage you, if you go to the Vermont Conservation Voters website, to the VFERG website, Sierra Club, VNRC, I'm sure, you know, Renewable Energy Vermont, there's abundant information available about these key bills and about why they matter and why they're important and why we ought not repeal them.
And I think that Evelyn, who's in touch with these lobby, could sort of coordinate something, which would be great.
Yes.
All right, and Kate.
Yeah, I wanted to mention some of the work that we did in what was the Committee on Environment and Energy last session. If one of your priorities is, you know, conserving forests, this is a really good time to get involved at the community level with your regional planning commissions as your towns are putting town plans together for the next 10 years. And the region, your regional planning commission is helping design land use maps that will be taking our conservation maps into consideration about the critical natural resources that we want to conserve across Vermont. We passed a bill to put a plan together to conserve 30% of Vermont's lands by 2030 and 50% by 2050. And that's backed up by science and maps that the Agency of Natural Resources has already done a lot of work. But the planning process is happening now, and these future land use maps are going to be put into practice next year. So you can get involved with your regional planning commission right now to help influence the land use maps that will identify those forest lands that we want to conserve. Thank you.
I'm Senator Terry Williams, and I'm probably the guy that's got the opposing bills on the wall. And what I want to say is that I'm a lifelong Vermonter. I have 3 children and 5 grandchildren and a great grandchild. They're all still living here in Vermont. I'm a member of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee and the Education Committee. And I'm not here doing this because I need the money. I'm doing it because
None of us are.
I'm doing it because I love what I do, and I can, but I think we need to have a dialogue that encompasses both sides, not just one. And I really respect the fact that Senator White invited me to come in, and I want to be part of the conversation because we can't fix this problem from one side. We all agree we got a problem. I've contributed to that problem over my lifetime, and I want to be part of the solution.
Oh, well, we'll see.
Anybody wants to talk to me? I'm open.
Dara. This has been wonderful. I want to thank Harmony for reaching out to Candace and myself to let us know she's coming. That's another really great thing to do is if you're going to be around, let your rep know because we would love to welcome you into our committee and meet with you. And I also want to welcome everyone and especially the Harvard folks because they're our district. My daughter was involved in the youth lobby. Very proud that it started at Harvard. I just wanted to get to your question. I forgot, what's your name? Cora. One of the themes behind all the repeals of the climate legislation is this idea that the costs outweigh the benefits.
And one of the exciting things that's happening starting up in our state, with the Department of Public Service and the Public Utilities Commission, which are very involved in what happens in the energy world, and that's key for having clean options, is they're gonna actually look at resilience and how do we value the things that we do that promote resilience. So we've had a real imbalance in understanding benefits versus costs, and I think that gets to some of the issues that we face when we are on two sides of an issue around climate. So that's an encouraging thing, and that's an area, as you go into your higher ed and your next careers, understanding how to quantify benefits is really an exciting space and important.
Lucky representative.
I think one more question because we have to take our photo.
Yeah, so
Sure.
it's just a comment, actually. I used to teach a class called Making Laws, Making Change with the Governor's Institute, and it was actually a 2-week program, but I've offered it to student groups. I think one of my students was here. I've offered it to student groups in like a 1-hour version or in a 20-minute version, and it looks at both how to understand the legislative process and also how to advocate and impact within it. So I just wanted to offer, I'm a high school teacher, even though I'm here wearing my legislative hat, like somebody take my card and I'm happy to meet with you in person or on Zoom somewhere to help you guys learn about the process.
Yeah, and maybe there might be a few people who might want to gather together to do
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Legislators might use that.
Adults are welcome.
Yeah, okay. So this has been really great, and I wish we had all day to continue this conversation. And we really value your voices, youth, and you are such an important part of this conversation. So let's give a round of applause, and we're gonna. And are we gonna take?
We're gonna take
picture
the
in hall?
photo. We're gonna take the photo in front of Abraham Lincoln.
All right.
So if you are wanting to be in the photo,